Tonight, you will have the opportunity to address City Council on both non-agenda and agenda items. The agendas and the speaker request cards are located on the tables outside of council chambers. You must fill out a speaker card in order to address the City Council. Please hand in your completed card to the City Clerk before the start of the meeting. If the meeting has already begun, please hand it to any city staff. You may also check the "I do not wish to speak" option on the card. This allows you to still voice your opinion on an item on the record without having to speak. Public comment on a non-agenda item will take place during the citizen comment portion of the evening. These are items that don't appear on tonight's formal agenda. The City Clerk will call your name when it's time for you to speak. At that time, please approach the podium and state your name for the record. We ask that you speak clearly into the microphone. You'll have a maximum of 3 minutes, and there is a timer visible from the podium. When the light changes from green to yellow, your time is coming to an end. When the light turns red, your time is up. Note that you may also choose not to speak if other speakers before you have said what you wanted to say. Shouting, cheering, and loud noises will not be tolerated, and violators may be removed for disrupting the meeting. Goodyear City Council meetings stream live on Facebook and YouTube, and online at goodyearaz.gov. Thank you for your participation in tonight's meeting.
I'd like to call to order the regular meeting on November 9th, 2020. Please join Councilmember Hampton in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear Lord, I just want to thank you so much for today, Lord, for our country and for the city of Goodyear, God. I just thank you for all of our police and fire and public safety and our military. Just be with them, especially during this Veterans Day holiday week, Lord. Just thank you for those that have served and that have served in the past, Lord. Just thank you for them and all that they've done for us and continue to do for us currently, Lord. I just also want to pray for wisdom and guidance in leading the city, Lord. To make sure that we're doing it right for the people of Goodyear, to make it the best place that they can live and raise their families. Just thank you, Lord, for being such a great and powerful Lord. I just thank you for loving us always. In your name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Councilman Hampton. Everyone is present. So now is the time where the city clerk gives some information about how to participate in tonight's meeting to the public.
While the Goodyear City Council meetings are open to the public, the occupancy has been reduced to implement social distancing. Seating is generally available on a first-come basis, but meeting attendees will be cycled in and out if necessary to allow for speakers to speak on certain agenda items. If you wish to speak during a regular meeting, please complete a speaker's card so that we may ensure you are in the room for that item. Face masks are required and must be worn when moving throughout the building. Our residents still have several ways to address the council. They may submit their questions and comments to public comments at goodyearaz.gov, and during the meetings, they can view the meeting using Facebook, YouTube, and the link from our agendas using Granicus. After the meetings are completed, they can also be viewed on YouTube. The public may always contact the mayor and council at any time by sending an email to gycouncil@goodyearaz.gov. Thank you. Now is the time, if anybody is here and want to talk on a non-agenda item in this jurisdiction of Goodyear City Council. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
All right. Thank you. Well, let's go to the consent agenda. Will the city clerk please read consent agenda items 1 through 3 by title only, please?
Number 1, approval of minutes. Number 2, adopt resolution 2020-2100, declaring a portion of 175th Avenue between the Union Pacific Railroad and MC 85 unnecessary for public roadway and vacating the roadway, providing for the recordation of the resolution and providing for effective dates of the abandonment and resolution. Number 3, approve the recommended reappointments to the Arts and Culture Commission.
Thank you. Does council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Can I have a motion, a second, to approve items 1 through 3? Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilman Hampton and a second from Councilman Pizzillo. I had to do it, didn't I? I haven't done it much this year. Councilman Pizzillo. All right, roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell? Councilmember Hampton?
Aye.
Councilmember Kano?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
The motion carries.
All right, we're on to the business. I'd like to remind council to wait for a motion a second before discussion. The only item on business is to consider approving the one-time exception to the vacation cash-in policy. Human Resources Director Lyman Lockett will be presenting. Lyman?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we're here to request a one-time approval of our vacation cash-in policy, policy number 600, section C3, which encompasses our vacation cash-in policy. The policy currently provides employees the ability to cash in vacation in lieu of taking time off. Currently, employees may cash in up to 40 hours if they've used 40 hours of vacation and they have a bank of 80 hours or more. That's for our 40-hour employees. And for our 56-hour employees, they can cash in up to 56 hours if they've used 56 and if they have a bank of 112. The impact of COVID has had negative impact on our employees' ability and patterns of vacation that we would normally see. There's just been, if you recall, just going through COVID, it's amazing that we've been going through the various cycles for this long. But from the start in March, initially things were closed down. So many employees canceled their vacation. That led in through the summer. Then we had school, kind of unknown situations about what was happening with school. So the uncertainty surrounding COVID has led to many employees canceling vacation and pushing vacations out, and again, cancellation. So we're in a situation where we have a number of employees who are in jeopardy of losing vacation. We generally, and we continue to promote employees taking their time off. So that's been part of our strategy as we've moved through this process. In some cases that's worked, in other cases it hasn't worked. So today we're here to ask for this one-time exception. The exception would be to increase the amount of carryover, or excuse me, the amount of cash in from 40 to 60 for our 40-hour employees and from 56 to 84 for our 56-hour employees. The estimated cost of this is about $205,000. We think that this would be absorbed by most departments through their salary savings. However, for those that couldn't, and once we looked at the impact of this, we would do a budget transfer for no more than $205,000 if we happen to exceed that. I should also mention that one of our other strategies that's allowed by the city manager is to increase the vacation carryover by 20 hours. So we've taken that step initially at the outset when we saw that many vacations were being canceled. And then the other thing I'd like to just add historically, this was one of the benefits that council restored 3 years ago. So during the economic downturn, we had put this particular benefit aside. We look back at our benchmark cities, 80% of our benchmark cities offer the same type of cash-in benefit. And it is something that employees feel very strongly about. We're here tonight to request this one-time exception. We feel like this is the best method of looking out and trying to deal with these banks that are building. We think that the potential to increase a carryover wouldn't necessarily solve the issue. It would perpetuate it. We feel like this is the best and the most effective approach to deal with it. So with that, I will answer any questions you may have.
All right. Open for council discussion. I guess I better do a motion before that or we'll be in trouble. Could I have a motion a second to approve?
So move.
Councilman Pizzillo made the motion and Councilman Campbell seconded. All right, open for council discussion. Councilman Loretano?
I appreciate the fact you're doing, this for the employees because obviously with everything closed down, it's not looking like it's going to get better for the next year. Is this something that we can look to budget in for the next fiscal year as well? Is this something we're kind of looking to see? It might take another 6 months or a year. And if so, is this something that would have to wait to the end of the year or people start building it up? Could they do it halfway through the year or what can we do?
There are some strategies we can look at. There are some cities that have a two-time opportunity for people to look at cash in. So those are things that we can look at. Again, with the uncertainty and not knowing what next year is going to look like, we may have the need to do something similar. So we'll look at that.
Well, thank you. And I thank you for being flexible, for the city management for being flexible for everyone. Thank you.
Councilman Pizzillo?
Yeah, I agree what you're working on there. We're really in some challenging times, so it's very difficult to plan a vacation when you can't go anywhere. Second thing is refresh me, when is the payout? Is it December when they have to make that decision?
Yeah, December. Typically, we would do it the week of Thanksgiving, that paycheck of Thanksgiving. But as we were contemplating this, we're pushing it out to the first week of December would be the effective date of the payout.
I also
First
think,
paycheck in December.
I also believe something because of other challenges associated with this environment, and that may come in handy for some of these people that may not normally want to do that, but will, as a result, to cover some of their, expenses that they've gone through. So again, I appreciate you thinking this out in advance, and I'm in for it.
Councilman Hampton?
Yeah, no, thank you. And also thank you for taking my call and answering more questions for me earlier today. So, but yeah, I think it's a good option for them, especially in light of not being able to take it. At the end of the day, holistically, I want to make sure that they can take their time off in the future. I mean, that's what it's there for, so we want them to do that. So I like that we encourage that, so the way it's structured. So, no, but I'm good with this because of the situation right now. So thank you.
Councilmember Kano?
I imagine you have some employees in a use it or lose it situation then that are going to hit their maximum.
Indeed, yeah, roughly 108 that we have calculated right now that are in that use it or lose it.
Okay, that's a pretty harsh penalty when you can't take your time. So thank you for that.
Any other comments? Before I have you vote, I'd like to read what you said yay to or nay to, because I did not do that. And we have a lot of people listening in, so I'm going to read this again so they know what this vote's about. Can I have a motion a second to approve a one-time exception to the Policy 600, Section C3, vacation cash-in to increase the amount of vacation hours eligible for a cash-in from 40 hours to 60 hours. In parentheses, it says 56 hours to 84 hours for sworn shift fire personnel, and also approve the related budget transfers to fund the increase. So now let's vote for it. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. All right, at the time, or at the last, does the council have any comments or commentation or reports you want to give tonight? Yes, Councilman Stipp, Mayor Stipp, Vice Mayor Stipp. I thought I'd promote you.
Stipp, whatever. I just have one request of the manager. We've got the retreat coming up on Friday. I no longer have my the initial manager's budget binder. Can we get the list of supplementals, all of them, the ones that were approved and the ones that were not approved before Friday's retreat? interim, that's the word I was looking for. The interim budget,
It's catching.
it is.
Say, I started, and then I don't want to just hoard it, so.
Okay, well, I appreciate
Yeah.
you sharing that, but that's what I'm looking for.
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments? All right, City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to notify the public that city offices will be closed in observance of Veterans Day this Wednesday, November 11th. Emergency fire, police services, and sanitation services will operate as normal, and city offices will reopen at 8 a.m. Thursday, November 12th. But also in recognition of Veterans Day and in honor of our veterans, we created these signs that say, "We love our veterans." I have a prop today.
Nice.
And they're to be placed in your front yard for anyone to show appreciation for our local veterans. The signs are available to Goodyear residents and can be picked up at City Hall or the Recreation Office located in Fire Station 183 on Litchfield Road. Quantities are limited. We also provided 200 of these signs to the West Valley Veterans Center and American Legion. We are also encouraging residents to submit short videos to veterans@goodyearaz.gov to share why Veterans Day is important to them. A sampling of these videos will be featured on our city's social media channels. Thank you.
Well, I think that's wonderful as a wife of a veteran and knowing and aware of everything the family has to go. Wally, you're one of those, aware of all the sacrifices that the families make and, of course, as a soldier makes. So it's really nice to see us with a sign, and that kind of gets it everybody. So, and before we've just been trying to get them by shaking your hand, you just can't reach everybody. So I really appreciate this. So no further business from anybody?
Mayor, real quick, are those signs here? City Hall. No, I mean, do you have any here?
Just the one, and I don't have the frame, so we do have them at City Hall or at the rec office.
Well, the only reason I asked would have been nice if we could have brought a few of them here for us to take home.
Anything else? All right, the next meeting, for a regular meeting on November 16th, 2020 is 6 p.m. No further business to discuss. This meeting's adjourned. Now I'd like to call to order a work session for November 9th, 2020. And we are all present. We have one item on the agenda tonight. I'd like to remind council that staff will be pausing intermittently to answer any questions. And that item is a presentation on the 2020 Employee Satisfaction Survey results. Human Resources Director Lyman Lockett presenting. Lyman.
Good evening again. We're very pleased to bring forward our 2020 employee survey results. I'll take time just to walk through them and certainly provide answers, hopefully, to any questions that you may have. We have again this year just a little bit of our background regarding the survey. We use National Research Center. They're an independent research firm. They're the firm that also does our citizen survey, excuse me. And they are partnered with ICMA. The employee survey measures 10 dimensions of the employee experience, and it is a web-based survey. Objectives of the survey include assessing organizational strengths, identifying organizational challenges, articulating specific needs of our employees. The methodology is a web-based survey. This year, for the 2020 survey, we had 516 employees complete the survey for a response rate of 86%. Historically, and I should add, when Julie arrived, one of the things that she really wanted to focus on was increasing our response rate. Last year last survey cycle, we were just greater than 80%. So we were a little bit higher. But with the pandemic, we're pleased with the 86% response rate. Our goal is 100%. So we do a lot of things internally to try and generate the highest response rate possible. Given some of the challenges with the pandemic, we think an 86% is a nice effort, certainly not the 100% that we're always striving for. The other things related to the goals of the survey, obviously we'll want to look at increasing job satisfaction. We want to increase employee engagement, obviously productivity and performance. And we also look at quality services, the services of our internal, the quality of our internal services, to look to see how we are doing there. Here's the 10 areas of the survey. These are buckets that each of the surveys look at and categorize the information into. Job satisfaction, work group performance, employee contribution and fit, employee supervisor relationship, employee performance evaluation, employee development, wages and benefits, communication decision making, respect and ethics, and physical work environment. One of the key features of the survey was the ability to benchmark ourselves against other cities. So their database, National Research Center, has a database of 50 communities throughout the United States. 25,000 employees are within their database. So it gives us a great look at how we compare to other cities. For our 2020 survey, of the 133 questions in the survey, we were higher than the benchmark on 122, and we were similar to the benchmark on 11 of those. And these are statistical in nature in terms of higher or lower. So in order to be higher, they need to be 5% or more higher than the average. To be similar, they would need to be within that 5% range. And to be lower, we'd need to be 5% or more lower. Comparing our 2020 ratings to 2018, we had 13 areas that were higher than 2018, 119 that were similar, and 1 that was lower. And again, this is statistical. If you look at the actual ratings, we only had 3 areas that were lower than our 2018 rating. So generally, as we look at the survey, we feel like we had a great performance given the pandemic and other things that were going on. Looking at it from this perspective, and this is a little hard to read here, what it shows is this is those 10 survey areas that I showed earlier. Those that are in dark shaded, those are areas of the survey categories that are higher than our benchmark. That medium shade there, the employee contribution and fit, is similar, and we didn't have any areas that were lower than the benchmark. There were 2 areas there that have a star by them: employee contribution and fit, and respect and ethics. And those are areas that are that drive satisfaction here at the city of Goodyear. So those are specific to us here at Goodyear. These are the things that most drive satisfaction based on their statistical analysis. So the National Research Center walked away with 3 key findings. Finding number 1, job satisfaction and morale continues to soar. These are National Research Center's words, so we've been with them now for 4 cycles, from 2014 to now, 2014, 2016, 2018, and now our 2020. Been looking at trends over time. So their key finding number 1 was that job satisfaction remains high. And morale, which we'll talk about in a bit as we look at the scores, is also soaring. Great words. We're not quite satisfied yet. It was an area that council looked at last time at our ratings. We were able to move that rating, and I'll get to that in a minute. Overall job satisfaction. If you look at our overall job satisfaction, and this is the specific question that employees answered were, are you satisfied with your job? 60% strongly agreed that they were satisfied with their job. Oh, I'm sorry. Got a little ahead of myself there. Thank you, Julie. 60% strongly agreed that they were satisfied with their job. Another 30% somewhat agreed. And then we had about 7% that were in disagreement in terms of job satisfaction. So this is a key indicator that we looked at from a favorability standpoint. The way it appears on the survey, that would be a 93% satisfaction rating.
You wanted to stop? Could you just hold?
Certainly.
We have a couple questions
Absolutely.
at that point. Thank you, Joe.
I'm just curious, if you strongly agree with 60% and you somewhat agree with 33%, so that's 93%. How is it possible that you have a turnover rate in some departments that are really high? Because if they're strongly agree and they somewhat agree, turnover rate should be very low with those numbers. That's just what I take from it. Now, I know this is probably an average, so maybe you got details of departments that may vary from this. But when I see these kind of numbers, I think you've got 3-4% turnover rate in the city.
And
At least that's my conclusion I draw when I
Sure.
see these kind of numbers.
And this is an aggregate number of the entire city. We've shared department results this year, or this past week. We've shared department results. So the departments have had an opportunity to dig into that. You'll see throughout this survey, if you look at a micro level, you'll start to see different things pop in different departments, different opportunities we have. Some departments do better than others in some areas, but you'll see some indication of where we may have opportunities. So again, this is the aggregate. The information that I'm sharing today is a high level, looking at the city as a whole. Not every department performed in the same way as what you're seeing here, but I would say largely most departments were in this category. Obviously, it's an average. So I would say it's a high average. You have some that are pulling us up, some that might be right there in that average, and some that might be pulling us down.
No, the only reason why I ask is you got for an average, you've got to have a lot in the 90s and only a very few in the well below that, kind of opposite, to get those kind of numbers. So being a numbers guy, and again, don't dispute what you got up there. I'm just saying it leaves cause to some of my conclusions that I've seen. So go ahead.
And I should add that our typical follow-up is to share, I believe at this point we've shared the workplace report, which is the global report, the trends over time, also global look. The subsequent reports that you'll get will be the department breakdowns, and I think that covers it.
Okay.
Vice Mayor? You want to wait till the end? All right, okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Moving on, digging in further to job satisfaction aspects that are prevalent in the survey. Plan to work for the city a year from now, so we're 96% there. City is a good employer. 96% of our employees strongly agreed with that. 94% felt positive about working for the city, and 93% gained satisfaction from their job. Again, you'll see the color coding here, so you can see where we were either above, similar, or lower, if there were any that were lower than the benchmark. In this particular case, 2 were higher and 2 were similar. Looking at aspects of working for the city in greater detail, and these are some interesting areas of the survey. Some of the work that we've been doing around our core values, we feel had some great impacts on these. So if you look at the first one, communicating standards of ethical behavior, we moved that 9 points. So in 2020, we're at 88% favorability. In 2018, we're at 79%. Collaboration among work groups, again, movement of 5% there. Communication of work groups, communication among work group staff overall, positive movement there as well. City's reputation among staff, another move of 10%, which we think is very encouraging. There's that staff morale, overall morale. So that was one that, if you recall, you highlighted, and 63% didn't feel too good about morale. We moved it to 73. We're still not comfortable that we feel like we're there. but certainly a 10-point movement in one cycle is significant. Applying discipline fairly and consistently, again, you'll see movement there, and then opportunities for promotion, again, a 10-point movement there. So these are areas that the National Research Center looks at as aspects of the workplace and are reporting there.
Questions? Comments? Bill?
All right, I'll go now. Can you go back?
Sure.
Please. So on that, that's pulled from page 8 in the workplace report, that data. So everybody knows where I'm reading. We still have, the whole report is very, very positive. I mean, there's no question about that. And I think what you're presenting tonight is the very positive result of that. The other side, which I think when we're talking about this, that we would continue to be concerned with is the connection between compensation and performance, dealing with low-performing employees, which remains less than 50%. Even though we've had some significant movement in the applying discipline fairly and consistently, obviously, I think every organization would like to see that number very high. That just is that's a sign of good management that we're doing those things. So do you have a work plan that's going to come out of this
Indeed.
Because we could drown in the positivity of it and then completely miss the opportunity to continue to strengthen the organization. I think one of the things we all take pride in is the best workplace in the Valley. And that's something that I think we've all taken very seriously. So I'm curious if that comes up later, that's fine.
Absolutely. I will talk about next steps in the process later. And what I would say at this point is that we are approaching this from a continuous improvement perspective. We don't think we've arrived. We think the city is a great place to work. However, we know we can be better. So we're looking at all avenues of the survey where we have opportunities. I'll talk a little bit about our focus areas. Dealing with low-performing employees is one of those that we've been working with over the last 4 iterations. So within this survey, there is certainly work to do. No question about that.
Sherry?
It's funny you mentioned that because I have page 8 open on mine too, because that's kind of what drew my attention was dealing. It looks like just from the nature of some of the questions that are very similar that there's a feeling that that some people aren't pulling their weight and that the supervisors aren't helping those people pull the weight and the low performing, and then the people, it just seems like there's a little yin and yang there, that there's a group that does not feel like that everyone's pulling their weight and that the low performing employees aren't basically being recognized for that. And that just seems to be where I kind of took from several of those questions. The other area was the opportunities for promotion. And I'm guessing that has something to do with the fact that we're not a huge employer and there isn't a lot of maybe movement at the top. So if you want to increase your career, you at some point have to leave. And I don't know if that's data we collect because you can only go so far. If I'm in personnel and you're not going anywhere, human resources, then there's a ceiling there for our employees. So I'm not sure how we deal with that.
And there's a couple of things with that question, and there is a yin and the yang there, because we also, within the survey, 94% of our employees say they want to be here a year from now. So if you're not having turnover, that curtails the opportunities to grow. Our approach has been that we are going to, and I hope you've seen a pattern of development. So as we're communicating this to our employees, our goal is to make them as competitive as possible. Hopefully that opportunity happens to be here in the city and they can compete, whether it be an internal recruitment or whether it be an external. They can compete with the best of the best. So that's our goal from a development perspective, and that's how we're communicating that. We obviously can't create every opportunity, but we certainly can prepare our employees to be able to take on those opportunities as they come. The great news is we're a growing city. So I think when you see that other 10-point swing opportunities for promotion, we moved up 10 points there. So one of our benchmark things that you don't see in the survey that we're constantly looking at is how many of our positions are filled internally. So our goal is to have 33% of our positions filled internally. We think that's a high number. This year we were right around 26%. Last year we hit that 30 percentile. But we are growing, and those opportunities are there, I would say, for people who want to grow more so than some of the mature cities that aren't growing at the pace that we're growing at. So kind of a good news, bad news situation. But I think the key is how we communicate that to employees. And when we talk about development and readiness, it's not only about being ready for that next position, but it's mastering the position that you're in. So creating this growth environment is part of that communication that we're having with our employees.
And will that be some of the data you said that's coming later on that we see when people like might leave a department? Did they go to another department? Did they go somewhere else for a better job? Is that data you guys collect?
Absolutely. Yeah, we collect data for our promotions internally. So if people are being successful in those recruitment processes, we're collecting that.
Well, thank you for your hard work on it.
Laura?
Wait, I have a question. Thank you.
Certainly.
Does Goodyear have a formal written performance appraisal instrument?
We have, and one of our things, we're kind of jumping slightly ahead, but this is a great time to have the conversation. Part of our next phase of what we call our intentional design of Goodyear's culture is to look at performance management. So we have a performance management tool that is in the actual capital expenditure plan that we're working on right now. And performance management has changed considerably over time. Performance management has moved to the structured annual appraisal where you try and capture a full year of performance in one sitting, 1 or 2 times a year, to ongoing conversations that are had in performance management that happen in real time. Let's not wait until it's time to do a performance appraisal before we have that performance discussion. So that's where we're moving. That's the system we're building. That's the system that is deemed most effective in the performance management world. We are in transition now, and you're seeing some of that in the survey relative to some of the questions that Vice Mayor Stipp asked about connection to, not necessarily connection to compensation and performance, but even the performance conversations happening on a regular basis. So we're seeing it, we're hearing it,
Right.
and we are going to be addressing it in our next phase, which will start in January.
Okay, because that should be a methodology to have those coaching documented about your performance, and also steps you can take in the next year to prepare you for future opportunities or pursue projects or things that, you know, would help you with your career development. So I think that would probably help quite a bit. I mean, communication's always the challenge, ongoing communication. So, okay, and I know this is sort of related, but do the directors also get some sort of performance instrument as well in terms of goal setting and evaluating their results?
They would currently, the model that we've had in the past has been that traditional performance appraisal. We are moving to this new model, so directors would be part of that as well. This would be our system throughout. Our performance management system would be consistent at all levels of the organization. And we think that's important, that that tool and the system itself is universal. There may be some unique components from department to department that are specific to the department, but the structure it would be consistent throughout.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Well, I will say GEO on Monday mornings, when I greet the people and spend a great deal of time with them, I'm stunned at what they're bringing with them, the experience they had, the jobs they've had. It's mind-boggling. And I often talk about that when I can't believe well, how lucky we are with your, all the information and expertise you have. Along with the cities, we get a lot of people from the other cities coming in to compete. So I'm sure all of that has to be kind of put together so to promote somebody, and promote them at the level you need for the job. I think that's always, tough to meet that criteria sometimes.
It's extremely competitive, and 26% of our employees are prevailing, so we feel good about that.
I can tell you the future employees we just hired. Wow, outstanding.
Okay. Let's see here. Oh, I think I missed a slide there. Yes, I did. So key finding number 2 of the survey is confidence in city's executive leadership is at an all-time high. Again, National Research Center's words in their assessment and analysis of our survey scores, looking at the key aspects of executive leadership. These are the 4 areas that they pointed out. Again, we think some of these, many of these are related to our core values work. So communicating and inspiring vision, and I would add that our core values work, and back to the performance appraisal, this is foundational work for the performance appraisal that we want to have. So the work that we've been doing on core values is setting a foundation for expectations that are universal across the city. So we've had the words before. If you look at all of our core values, we've taken it to a new level in talking about what the expected behaviors of each of those core values are. And that's going to be a foundational component of the performance appraisal moving forward. So that inspiring vision we feel is part of that work. Also, the strength of shared understanding amongst employees. Again, we've spent 18 months talking about a shared understanding so everybody is on the same page. Spending 3 months on each of the core values, taking it from the top of the organization. Each director has worked that through their organization, so we think that's coming through in these scores as well. Clarity of strategic direction and speed of response. We think that speed of response is largely connected to work around the coronavirus. So we've had to shift. We've had to communicate in a different way. We've tried to be very timely in that communication and keep employees informed about what's going on. So that's emanated from executive leadership, and we think it's coming through in the ratings there. Last thing that they highlighted relative to executive ratings were these 2 areas that we talked about earlier, where 85% of our employees felt that executive leadership was there. Looking at our lowest rated scores, and this might answer a few other questions that were posed, dealing with low performing employees, we moved it in the right direction. We're still at 48%, and this might be one of the toughest areas of the survey. It has been one of our lowest scores on the survey. It's moved in the right direction. However, it's one of those things that often it might be perception of whether we're dealing with an employee or not. So I think the key and our approach to this has been, let's make the standards clear. So again, back to that foundational piece of core values, let's make the standards clear so everybody knows the standards. And you create the peer pressure. When I see you not upholding the standards, our employees are either beginning to call other employees out or beginning to praise other employees for modeling that behavior. So that's our approach, one of our approaches anyway, to addressing dealing with low-performing employees. It's working. Are we there yet? We're not there. So there's certainly still more work to do there. Recognizing high-performing employees, again, that's another area where we're far from where we want to be. And as you look at our survey action planning process, that will be a key part of that as well. Connecting compensation to performance, that's an area that we probably aren't going to get to right away. We purposely split the two. And I don't believe we're at a point now to talk about that connection again until we have that foundational piece in place. So that could be a strategic conversation that might come at a different time. But it is moving in the right direction. Opportunities for promotion, again, we talked about that, and applying discipline fairly and consistently. To your point, Vice Mayor, that's a key that you would want to see high. We would hope that all of our employees feel like we treat people fairly when it comes to discipline. So again, there's work to be done there.
I have a question. So when a director talks to somebody that really would like to move up to a higher job, higher pay, do they take time and sit down and talk with them and say, well, this is where you're at, but this is what you need to do, and kind of scope them for success? I mean, and tell them what the time frame is and what you need to be able to.
Absolutely. I think our directors do a good job of that. And one thing that, and I say directors, I would say leaders in the organization. I think one of the things that has been consistent in our survey is the relationship between employees and their supervisors. You know, it's an area that in order to do it well and be the best, you have to have some structure around it. So there are some things that I think are in our future. With regard to mentoring and things along those lines. Are we there yet? No, we're not there. So there's work there that we need to do to provide a different level of career counseling. I think at a base level, I think we do a very good job of that one-on-one connection between employees and their supervisor or employees and their department leader. Generally, I think we're doing a good job there.
Do we do any testimonies?
We certainly could. Absolutely.
Just thinking, so those that have been very successful. I mean, we do that in sales. That's how we acquire so much, by using those testimonies from people. And so there are probably people or employees that have done a really good job, and they're keyed for they're going to get them. But once they do, it would be very nice to let them share how they felt the path was for them to meet that.
Great suggestion, and I think it's something that we can certainly look at and promote more effectively.
Joe?
You know, for me too, providing, again, opportunity to develop a career path. I know smaller as we grow, that's probably going to be challenging. Dealing with low performance employees, I agree, you got to put some effort into that to try to get that up. 48 is really unacceptable. But also, from my perspective, a good manager providing recognition for doing good work. The bad managers always complain when you do something wrong, but never tell you when you do something good, okay? To me, 73% should be a lot higher than 75%. I mean, the managers should be recognizing positive work, good work of their employees, instead of maybe focusing always on the negative, because that also impacts morale as well. So from my perspective, recognition for doing good work, 73 is, in my opinion, way too low, because a manager's job should be to try to create that environment or work environment that conduces people to want to do a better job because they know they're appreciated and cared for, and they're recognized when they do that. So that's what I kind of see with that 73% being way, way too low. And communicating information in a timely manner, that can get very frustrated from staff when they don't get that timely. All right. In fact, if it's not timely, they may end up doing something that causes a problem because they didn't get the information timely. So I know these may be benchmarks overall, but I think we're better than that, and I would like to see us reach much higher goals in some of these benchmarks.
Bill?
Lyman, just a couple of observations, I guess. One is the dealing with low performing employees. I want to say historically, as a city, we have always said, or we've always seemed to, if Sherry's a problem in public works and I'm not a problem in finance, we move me over to public works and Sherry over to finance. That's been a systemic scenario within the city's culture, because we feel, presumably, that she would be more successful in a different department rather than being successful in the job she was hired to do. So if those kinds of practices are continuing to happen, that significantly affects this type of rating. And you had mentioned something about empowering employees to kind of call one another out. I worry that that turns into, hey, believe me, I'm just going to, I mean, that was the method of operation in the fire service. You know, I mean, that you took care of yourself on your crew, and if somebody wasn't cutting the, you know, pulling their weight, you let them know it. But I think there's potentially a negative attribute to that, which I'm sure you're aware that, you know, we've got to be careful about self-regulation in the workplace, as opposed to people which would then take the supervisor out of it. People need, if someone can't do the job, they've just got to be told. And I think Julie said it during her interview, we manage them up or we manage them out. And there's a real statement to that. And I think that gets to a lot of these kinds of issues. How many of these people are we actually managing out? We can do a lot, but certainly, you know, go through that. So I'm not expecting an answer, but I just wanted to kind of be on record that.
And I think that certainly I think deserves a response. I would say that we have certainly made a shift in dealing with performance issues. I think you'll see that in a number of areas. So I don't think we're moving problems within the organization. I cannot think of one circumstance where I felt like we moved a problem from one place to another. I would say that I would totally agree with you also on kind of self-policing or putting our employees in a place to police. To me, it was more about establishing a standard where everybody knows the standard. And I think people have fun with it when they have an opportunity. So it's more of an opportunity to praise a teammate for modeling the behavior as it is to call them out. But I think the process itself has been one where we've tried to inject fun into it. So we can have fun both ways. But where there's a problem, I think we're getting, and I think we're very good at managing problems. Are we perfect? No, by any means. However, I cannot cite in my mind a situation where we've moved a problem from one place to another.
I think the mugging concept I think that's a very, very fun way of recognizing one another. And I could envision people proudly displaying their mug, you know, when they're on their desk or whatever. So I think we're definitely making, and if you look at the chart, we're certainly making some headway in some of these problematic areas. And if you go back to probably when you started, you know, in that early 2012, 2013, 2014, we had problems. So the fact that we're still moving forward, we're still, you know, this is all good for us. So thanks.
I think handling people is very difficult sometimes because sometimes they're not communicative, and they'll tell you something, but it's not internalized. It's not what they feel. It's how they get through wherever they are. So I say good kudos to you, because this is not an easy job. You know, we talk about, you know, politicians being such fakes sometimes. Well, we have the same thing, employees. And so, you know, it's detrimental to the group. But to try to pick that out and work with them, and no matter what they think they are, make them a success, you know, and show them how it's done, no matter how they act or internalize it. It's a real accomplishment, but it takes a lot of time. It takes really good, you know, supervisors and managers and directors. I mean, it's not all on your department. I mean, you can only do so much, and But I always feel the employee that encourages people to advance themselves and learn. That's a trainer. That's a born trainer. They may be in a low position, maybe in a medium position, but that to teach people what the accomplishment is, not a paycheck, not a dollar to them, just the praise, genuine praise to somebody, appreciating exactly what they've done is very meaningful. Don't get me wrong, I know everybody wants a good paycheck, but I'm just saying for these incidents, it needs.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there. And I think one of the things that we've focused on over the last few years is leadership development. Mm-hmm. So our leaders have gone through Franklin Covey's 4 Essentials of Leadership has been kind of the foundational piece, but through that, we're focusing on these components. We're looking at communication. How do you communicate? How do you praise? How do you deal with your low performing employees? So I think our leaders have even stepped it up a notch in the way they lead. I wouldn't even say they've even stepped it up a notch. I think they're invested in leadership, and we see that in how they're engaged in the coursework that we're bringing to them. And that coursework is directly related to trying to address these issues.
Well, the city's a winning team. Of all the West Valley, we're the ones that are moving out, moving forward, moving high. So what a good idea from work for a company that's successful.
Sure.
So I think just that attitude in the departments about look where we are, look where we're going, it's exciting.
Absolutely. So you've seen our focus areas there. We've worked on those. I would agree that 75%. That was a target that we established back in 2016. You can see where we were at there. You can see that we still have work to do. And as I said, we've got leaders at all levels of the organization working on trying to address these issues. Looking at areas of most significant improvement, you can see 6 of the areas here. And I think what's most significant, I won't talk about each of these, but what I will say is that the movement in one cycle of 10 or 11 points is significant. I think if you look back at the prior page where it's taken us 4 cycles to move some of those scores, I think this year is a good year to look at some of these, particularly when you look at overall staff morale. And I really want to point out, because this is an area where, the executive team has really focused in on and said that overall morale that's not us. We're better than that. So let's make sure that we reflect that in how we move forward. So again, work to be done there. These are areas of the survey that decreased. So as I mentioned earlier, mathematically, we only had 3 areas that decreased from last year. This first one here, again, I think we've had 2 questions in this area. Councilmember Kano and Vice Mayor Stipp looked at this first question, and this is directly related to our performance management process. So we have a goal on how we're going to address this issue here. The other 2 were areas that didn't have a significant movement, but that one really stood out to us as an area of opportunity. We also had a couple of areas of the survey that were directly related to council goals. So council goal number 1.1 was to improve employee satisfaction by 10%. And that was measured by looking at the question, overall, I'm satisfied with my job. When this was set back in 2016, we were right at 90%. So moving at 10% would have taken us to 100. So what we did is our goal was kind of shifted to let's move the people who strongly agree from 52 to 62%. We fell short of that goal. We moved it from 52 to 60%. So we fell just short of that. So again, more work to do. We think it was good progress, but not where we wanted to end on that particular.
So what's the conversation that goes on with that?
I
mean, how do you approach that?
Again, I think there are multiple aspects of employee satisfaction. So we're looking at a lot of different things. Back in 2014, when we decided on the 4 focus areas that were in that prior slide, this one here, we felt that focusing on these 4 areas would help drive satisfaction and also drive morale. So that's how we arrived at this. Leadership had a strategy session. We looked at the survey in its entirety, and we identified these areas as areas of focus.
Well, I agree. I think that thanking someone lacks in our society at the time that they need to be thanked. And I don't see any excuse for some of those that say they didn't get talked to, or they didn't, or the director's too busy, or didn't think that was important enough. But I think praising for a good job, for a job well done, should be immediate. I don't think it should be waiting till they have their yearly or 6-month talk. It should be just innate to the director that they can point that out.
Absolutely. The next area of the survey that was connected to a council goal was council goal 1.2, and that was to achieve a 75% positive employee rating on the question on the organization's support of continual learning and development. And then this one was determined by a favorability rating. So we actually hit this goal in our 2018 survey, and we actually moved it a little bit further along. So we ended up at 78% in support of continual learning and development. The last and third key finding that National Research Center came up with was the support services maintain or exceed improvements made in past years. So we've made progress in past years. They highlighted a couple of areas here. They looked at maintenance and repair services and facilities management services overall, where employees rated either excellent or good. So that was the last of the conclusions. And just to highlight the conclusions, these were the 3. Job satisfaction remains strong and morale continues to soar. Confidence in city's executive leadership is at an all-time high, and support services maintain or exceed improvements made in past years. So our next steps, and I'll walk through this. I'm looking at something a little different that we've added here, but on November the 2nd, we've shared the results at the department level. So all directors have their results, and they're beginning to look at those. They'll be going back out to their various organizations and leaders within their organizations and digging into the survey so we fully understand what the employees are telling us. We'll be communicating to the organization. That will actually happen next week, where we'll get the information out to the entire organization so that they can see it. We'll start our action planning process on November the 16th, and that'll continue through the end of December, getting information back from our employees. And we'll begin looking at our next phase 2, which will incorporate some of the things that we need to do within the survey action plan. So that's what's upcoming as we look forward.
Any questions? Joe?
Just a comment. I assume when, and again, I hate to use the word assume because you know what that does. Department levels, when it gets back down to the department levels, I would suspect that they will have a action plan on those areas that need improvement. That's going to be working with management, city management, to try to work on those areas that the survey says needs help.
That is correct. So at our retreat last Friday, everything blends together. We spent time talking about the survey, and everybody's got an action plan template. So ultimately, every department will have an action plan. Those action plans will include things that are necessary at the department level. Each department's going to have something likely unique to that department. So their department plans will be built around the needs of their individual departments.
Okay, thank you.
Laura?
Do you think that COVID had any impact on the ratings? I mean, in terms of workplace conflict and things and relationship with supervisors, it's been an incredible year. I mean, just curious.
I think so. It's hard for me to believe that there hasn't been, and we took our department back, the directors kind of just back to relive all the things. I didn't include everything, we couldn't, but include a lot of the significant things that have happened since March. And there's been a lot of things happening and impact. I unfortunately did not get back a question that I posed to National Research Center, but when I get that information, we certainly be happy to share it. And we were looking to see if there's any statistical or anecdotal information where others of their 50 cities have decided either not to do the survey or they've seen some kind of statistical change or even anecdotal change in their ratings because of COVID. Just be interesting to know. For us, I think there has been, and I think we came up with our own set of conclusions. One of those was we think our leaders have done a great job through COVID. From the outset, when we started looking at employees and looking at services and categorizing services from essential to non-essential, there's a dynamic in the organization already. People who may be non-essential may feel like their value may have been diminished in some way. Obviously, that wasn't the case, so our leaders had to talk about the importance of it. They also have to talk about it from the essential services perspective of employees and the things that they do and how COVID has impacted their work. So even that one dynamic created an opportunity that could have been a negative opportunity. Our salary increases, again, weren't what they typically were in some pockets of the organization. So there were a host of things that I think were managed well, even from council in how council communicated that you'd like to come back and look at it when more information was available. So there were things that have happened through the course of time that I think took leadership that otherwise we may not have had to engage in to be as successful as we were.
I think your communication game's been very strong, and it's definitely reflected in the ratings. One area under morale that I didn't see categorized or even really mentioned has to do with harassment, discrimination, diversity. I don't know. Those definitely have legal implications, and I'm also curious if there are employee affinity groups or employee resource groups within Goodyear that form an employee committee that can generally help with overall job satisfaction.
Sure, and there is one question in the survey related to harassment, and we scored favorably on that question, environment free of harassment, and I can't think of the exact wording, but there is one that relates to that. And we don't have affinity groups today. We've had a couple of startups that have fizzled out. We don't have that structure in place today. But I think we have other outlets that we're trying to build to push employee well-being and inclusiveness in the organization. Again, I think there certainly could be opportunities there to help, I think our overall goal in the work that we're doing in the survey and the work that we're doing to support the survey is to engage our employees in the work that they do. And with engagement comes satisfaction is our belief.
Yes, Molly?
Well, I thought during the COVID, our city operated in an extraordinary way. I don't think they really missed a beat. And in listening to GPEC week after week after week after week, and they were talking to big companies who had to rethink how they were going to operate and how they were able to bring their employees closer to them, even though they were not in-house. They were all over, everywhere, at home, maybe on the road. I don't know where they were. And it was interesting because I do not recall one company saying that they really had an issue with the COVID. They were able to quickly determine how to operate, how to keep going. We kept our city open, which was amazing to me, and I think everybody really stepped up to the plate. And I would hope that the employees would know how valuable they were to us during that time, because they were still pulling their weight at home, even though they weren't here in-house. And the ones that were actually out were still doing the same job, doing the same thing with the same everything, except this COVID hovering over them. And I think it's just extraordinary that we've done as well as we've done, and I'm really very proud of our city. And I want to thank all of our employees for everything that they do. I hope they have an opportunity, though, to talk to the supervisors before the year end if they're unhappy about something or if they don't feel they're being treated fairly. Sometimes perception is everything, and I can't help but think that if they do not feel that some of the lower performing employees are being disciplined enough or quick enough, they are, but it's just not out there. They don't see it, and they shouldn't see it necessarily. And so I think people need to just know that we're doing everything we can to keep everything together and to be fair to everyone and to provide a place for everyone to feel safe and enjoy coming to work. I can't imagine working in any other city but Goodyear. I hear nothing but wonderful things about it, and everybody wants to come here to work. I don't know that we pay more than anyone. I just think it's the family attitude, and it's how well everyone gets along. And I think that's a big plus to our city. We're very unique in that way.
Brandon?
Yeah, I also think, just cognitively, I think COVID had something good or bad. I mean, working from home is probably maybe a nice benefit for people who always had to be in the office. So being flexible, I think good leadership, being able to manage that well was good also. Is there a reason, the answer could be COVID. Now, this survey was 2 months later than the previous surveys?
September,
right?
Yeah, September, end of August, September is when we collected the data.
And all the previous ones were July, June, July, right?
Earlier, right, yeah, July, August, generally in August, the month of August.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was looking through, like they were all in like June, July time period, at least the last 3 or 4. So is that because of COVID, or is that just timing wise how it worked out?
I think we did contemplate whether we should do the survey or not. And at the end of the day, I think the decision was whether COVID skews our numbers or not, the numbers are what they are. So let's do the survey and let's deal with it, I think was the ultimate decision from executive leadership. So it was slightly off, but still within that time.
Yeah, okay. But it was about a year and 2 months essentially since the last
every
one
2
occurred.
years. So we've been
Every
on a
2
2-year
years.
cycle. Yeah.
Okay.
And
that's
so
right.
we're consistent.
Okay. So for some departments, if there was a large turnover, you might not have captured their data in a survey necessarily.
Yeah, we may not have captured those employees if they weren't here at the time.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Certainly.
So, okay. Yeah, I think, having, once you get down to the drill down to the departments and action plans to the actual departments, so then they can work on their particular pros and cons or whatever their particular things are is good. I assume you don't necessarily tell who did which employee gave which feedback, but I'm sure the director can see from as a whole what their department did. so that they can take
Yeah,
those, like I said,
that's our
action
goal.
planning.
Yeah, to Councilmember Campbell's point, between now and the end of the year, that's our goal, is to sit down. Let's understand what does this mean?
Mhm.
We don't deal with low performing employees. Tell us, what can we do
What
better?
does that look like?
Let's understand, right, to fully understand where our opportunities at and what we can do organizationally at each level to address it.
Yeah, no, I think our employees are vital, and I mean, they're vital to our success. I'm really proud of all the work that they're doing. So being able to make sure that they're taken care of and make sure that they're listened to and communicated to is important. So having a good work environment is what it continues to attract good employees. So yeah, no, I appreciate these surveys. So thank you.
Any other?
Thank you.
Yeah. We have one more meeting, so I'm going to wait to you. Are you in the next meeting? Can you in the?
Yes.
Oh, well then is he? All right, just want to make sure. All right, no further business to discuss. Any other business to discuss? All right, I'm going to adjourn this meeting and I'm going to call the special meeting to order. On November 9th, 2020, we're all present and we're going down to, if council won't be present, ask for motion. We are all here. With the COVID, we're here. How about that? All right. So we have one item on the business pursuant to the ARS 38-431.03A3 and 4, discussion and consultation for legal advice with the city attorney, the city manager, to consider its position and instruct its representatives regarding the labor negotiations. I'd like a motion and a second to go into executive session. Do I hear the motion?
So moved.
Okay. I heard a motion from Councilman Kano and a second from Councilman Pizzillo. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Stipp? Aye. Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell? Councilmember Hampton?
Hi.
Councilmember Kano?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
The motion carries.
All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break for staff to remove the microphones and other items in the room.